All right. So, how did TNA stack up against their closest competitor, AEW Collision, which airs on Saturday night? And now, for those of you that are wondering why I discuss Collision when I'm talking about the Impact ratings when they don't go head to head, and why I'm not discussing AEW Dynamite. I'm not discussing it because AEW Dynamite and TNA are not competitive. That is not a competition. It's such a huge gap. It's like not anything that you need to trend, and like just goes without saying, Impact is not close to Dynamite, and they never will be close. I did think that had Impact got the deal on CW and it was at 8 p.m., they're on a much stronger station than what AEW has. I did think that there would be some weeks where, if AEW Dynamite had a bad week, you know, Impact would have been competitive with Dynamite. But because it's on AMC, not a strong station, and it's at 9 p.m., TNA has no chance to compete with Dynamite. But they have been competitive with Collision. And so because that has been closer, that is something that I want to track week to week. That is an actual competition. It's like, why would I discuss, AAA ball versus Major League Baseball, right? Like that's not a competition. So, but you got two lower rated shows that have been essentially neck and neck for the first 2 weeks. This week would be the exception. That is something that I'm going to track, and I'm going to continue to track it. Collision had an insane week. So, Collision, this is from Dave. Collision had its best viewer number since May, and I think that had an NBA lead in 492,000 with a 0.07 demo rating. The demo rating was almost tripled from last week. I think they had a 0.02. So I think that would be tripled, actually. And viewers almost doubled the week prior against Saturday night's main event. This was also the same day as Rumble and head-to-head with the UFC pay-per-view show. I don't know what the hell happened. I don't know if they had some crazy lead-in. I don't know what was going on before Collision, but Collision killed. Collision crushed Impact. It is their best number since in like almost a year. Something spiked. Can you credit Tommaso Ciampa and Mark Briscoe? Maybe. Can you credit the fact that people were watching Royal Rumble earlier in the day and they still wanted to watch wrestling? Maybe that could be. I don't know. This one is an anomaly, and it's something that we're going to track here. I'm tracking Collision ratings because they are close to Impact ratings. Well, they had been the first 2 weeks, and Impact had been beating them, but Collision crushed Impact. And I also wanted this portion to be a separate YouTube video because last week I did 2 YouTube videos. I talked to the TNA rating, and then I talked the Collision, and then I talked when the Collision rating came out. I did a separate video discussing how Impact has been beating Collision. So I don't want anybody to think that I'm biased, but I actually am biased. I want TNA to win. The better TNA does, the better my podcast does, and the better my podcast does, the better my YouTube channel does, and the better my YouTube channel does, the more money I make. So, but I am fair. I like to be a fair broker and a fair person. So if we're gonna track it, we got to track wins and losses. The losses matter. And Collision handed Impact a significant loss. Like this is, my 49ers losing to the Seattle Seahawks, in the playoffs, like whatever it was, 40-6. So this was a drumming. This was an ass kicking. Collision beat Impact on their Impact's best week since they've been with AMC. And that is saying something. And you know what? And I think what this signals is that a lot of people have been telling me, I did not watch Collision because I did have the UFC on. I prioritized the UFC because I'm just checking out UFC on Paramount and seeing what's going on there. And I had some other stuff on, like Collision comes on at 8, UFC comes on at 9, but there was other stuff I was watching. But I did what was I going to say? Sorry, I just lost my train of thought. I did, wanted to make sure that, whenever I posted the information out, a lot of people have been telling me that Collision this past week was one of their better episodes. And I think that Impact has had a direct effect on that. Now, people say, Mike, they're on different nights. How could Impact have a direct effect on that? Impact having higher ratings than Collision the first 2 weeks. So you don't think that had an effect on Tony Khan booking a better show for Collision? He doesn't want that narrative out there, and that narrative is out there, and it's probably my fault. But I also saw that other people have been picking it up, like that idiot Raj, and then of course Wade Keller, who's not an idiot. Wade Keller is smart, and he's not like a grifter. So, people were talking, and it is like JD kind of poo-pooed the point. I disagree with him. I do think that Impact beating Collision does make a difference to AEW's perception, and it does make a difference to their bottom line. And if a significantly cheaper to produce show, albeit on a different night, worse time slot, but different night, beats Tony Khan's Collision show, which is getting significantly more revenue, if Impact is beating that show, you don't think the WBD is going to look at that and be like, why are we spending so much money on the show when this other show getting AMC is paying a fraction of the cost and they're outperforming it? Like, why are we spending all this money? You don't think that's going to come up? I think so. How could it not come up? That just makes sense to me. These WBD, they're not loyal to AEW. They're loyal to their bottom line. They're loyal to their stockholders. They're loyal to their investors. They're loyal to their sponsors. That's who they're loyal to. And I think the competition makes everybody better. And this minor competition here from Impact now all of a sudden becoming not a threat to Dynamite, but becoming a threat to Collision has caused Tony to focus a little bit more on Collision. And now Collision is becoming a better product because of that. And because it's a better product, all of a sudden we get a huge spike in the ratings. We'll see if it sustains. We'll see what happens next week. Will people stick with it? I don't know. I think it depends. It's really driven by what else is on television that night and what other competition is out there. But we shall see. It's something that we're going to track here every week. But I am a fair broker. I'm going to be talking about it each and every week until it really becomes irrelevant. But as of right now, I still think it's relevant for sure. I think it's 100% relevant.